In the twilight of the 18th century, one man stood as the colossus of a fledgling nation, his shadow stretching across battlefields, plantations, and the raw dream of American independence. George Washington, soldier, surveyor, farmer, statesman, was no myth, but a man of flesh and bone who wrestled with ambition, duty, and the weight of history. Born into the rolling hills of Virginia in 1732, he rose from modest gentry to become the indispensable figure of the American Revolution, the first president, and the architect of a nation's identity. His life wasn't just a series of triumphs. It was a crucible of hardship, sacrifice, and unrelenting resolve that shaped a country and left an indelible mark on the world. This is the story of George Washington, a tale of courage, contradiction, and the forging of a new republic under fire. Washington's story begins in Westmoreland County, Virginia, on February 22, 1732, in a world of tobacco fields and colonial ambition. The son of Augustine, a planter, and Mary Ball Washington, young George was not born to wealth but to opportunity. His father's death at age 11 left him under the care of his mother, a stern woman who instilled discipline, and his half-brother Lawrence, who opened doors to Virginia's elite. At 16, George took up surveying, trekking the wilds of the Shenandoah Valley, mapping uncharted lands with a precision that hinted at his methodical mind. The wilderness toughened him. 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with a horseman's grace, he learned to navigate both land and men. Lawrence's marriage into the powerful Fairfax family gave George access to Virginia's gentry, and by 20, he was a major in the militia, his ambition burning as bright as the frontier sun. The French and Indian War, erupting in 1754, was Washington's first forge. At 22, he blundered into history when his small militia force sparked a skirmish with French troops in the Ohio Valley, igniting a global conflict. His surrender at Fort Necessity was a bitter lesson in humility, but it didn't dim his fire. By 1755, he was aide to General Edward Braddock, marching into disaster at the Battle of the Monongahela. As French and native allies ambushed, Washington rode through a hail of bullets. 2 horses shot from under him, his coat pierced 4 times. His courage under fire earned him a legend's aura. Native warriors later claimed they couldn't kill him, as if fate itself guarded his life. By war's end, he was Virginia's hero, commanding the colony's militia at 26, his name synonymous with grit. In 1759, Washington married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow whose fortune transformed him into one of Virginia's richest planters. Mount Vernon, his estate on the Potomac, became his sanctuary and obsession. He managed its fields with a scientist's precision, experimenting with crops like wheat to escape the tobacco economy's volatility. But Mount Vernon was no idol. It was built on the backs of enslaved people, over 300 by the Revolution's end. Washington's relationship with slavery was complex. He profited from it, yet grew uneasy, freeing his slaves in his will, a radical act for his time. Still, his silence on abolition as president left a shadow on his legacy, a reminder that even giants carry contradictions. The road to revolution began in the 1760s, as Britain's taxes, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, stoked colonial resentment. Washington, now a Virginia legislator, saw the Crown's grip as a betrayal of liberty. By 1774, he was a delegate to the First Continental Congress, his military reputation and quiet gravitas making him a natural leader. When the Second Continental Congress met in 1775, with musket fire echoing from Lexington and Concord, Washington donned his militia uniform, a silent pledge to fight. Appointed commander of the Continental Army, he faced a ragtag force, farmers, blacksmiths, and merchants, against the world's mightiest empire. His task was impossible: forge an army, hold a rebellion together, and defy Britain's redcoats with little money, fewer supplies, and no navy. The Revolution tested Washington's soul. In 1775, he besieged British-held Boston, forcing their retreat with cannon hauled from Fort Ticonderoga, an early triumph. But defeats followed. In 1776, the British crushed his army in New York, driving them across the Hudson. Men deserted. Morale crumbled. Washington, sleepless and gaunt, refused to break. On Christmas night, he led 2,400 men across the icy Delaware River, surprising Hessian troops at Trenton in a daring dawn raid. The victory, small but electric, revived the cause. Princeton followed, another improbable win. These strikes showed Washington's genius, not in grand battles but in keeping an army alive, striking fast and slipping away. By 1781, Washington's persistence paid off. With French allies, he trapped General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. For weeks, cannons pounded. The British, cornered, surrendered. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris secured independence, and Washington did the unthinkable. He resigned his commission, refusing to seize power. The world gasped. Kings didn't step down, yet here was a general bowing to a republic. Back at Mount Vernon, he hoped for quiet, but history wasn't done with him. The young United States, under the weak Articles of Confederation, teetered on chaos. By 1787, Washington was at the Constitutional Convention, presiding over fiery debates that birthed the U.S. Constitution. His presence lent legitimacy. His silence spoke louder than words. In 1789, the Electoral College unanimously chose Washington as the first president. At 57, he took the oath in New York, acutely aware that every move set a precedent. His presidency was a balancing act. He navigated tensions between Jefferson's democratic ideals and Hamilton's Federalist vision, forging a government that could endure. He crushed the Whiskey Rebellion, proving federal authority, but avoided overstepping his power. He warned against foreign entanglements, steering the nation through Britain and France's wars. His farewell address, urging unity and caution against factions, was a blueprint for America's soul. After 2 terms, he stepped down again, cementing the peaceful transfer of power. A radical act in a world of monarchs. Washington's final years were spent at Mount Vernon, but peace was fleeting. In December 1799, a throat infection struck. Doctors, frantic, bled him, a common practice that likely hastened his death. On December 14th at 67, he died whispering, "'Tis well." The nation mourned. Napoleon ordered 10 days of mourning in France. Even Britain's navy lowered flags. Washington wasn't perfect. He owned humans, avoided divisive fights like abolition, and made military missteps. Yet his flaws pale against his resolve. He could have been king, but chose service. He held a fractured army together, then a fractured nation, forging a republic from chaos. His life was the hinge on which America turned. The times Washington lived in were raw and uncertain. The 18th century was a world of empires clashing, Britain, France, Spain, while colonies bled for freedom. In Virginia, planters like Washington straddled wealth and wilderness, their fortunes tied to land and labor. The Revolution wasn't just a war. It was a gamble on ideas like liberty and self-rule which seemed mad to monarchies. Washington's peers, men like Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson, were brilliant, but none matched his ability to unify. His stoic demeanor hid a fire. He danced at balls, loved theater, and wept at soldiers' graves. He wasn't a god, but a man who rose to meet history's call, shaping a nation that would outlive him. Mount Vernon remains a monument to his complexity. Its fields, worked by enslaved hands, grew his wealth. Its halls hosted debates that shaped a government. His will, freeing his slaves upon Martha's death, was a quiet rebellion against his era's norms. Today, we grapple with his legacy, hero and enslaver, visionary and pragmatist. Washington didn't just fight for liberty, he lived its contradictions, forcing us to confront our own. His story is America's, messy, imperfect, but relentless in its pursuit of something greater. That's the life of George Washington, the man who carved a nation from a wilderness of dreams and doubts. If this tale of courage and contradiction stirred you, smash that like button to honor his legacy. Subscribe for more dives into history's defining figures, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next epic. What's your take on Washington? Flawed hero or untouchable icon? Drop it in the comments, we read everyone. Until next time, thanks for watching.